to Let's Talk Gardening, and today I have Cree Catlett with me today. I
Hello.
have Paul Poston, and we're going to have them introduce themselves and kind of figure out like
Hello.
how they got into gardening and everything like that. So we'll start with Cree. Cree, why did you get into gardening?
Um, so I got into gardening on and off my whole life. I was more so into food and the nutrition aspect behind it, and then I got super into medicinal medicine, herbal medicine, and then I got into super foraging and then growing. So it all came full circle into me wanting to learn how to grow herbs and grow food. So I started small and fell in love. And yeah, that's how I got into it.
Awesome. Very cool. What about you, Paul?
I started gardening when I was very small. As I've grown up in life, I've kind of developed a sense of self-sufficiency. I think that that's important for most, the ability to eat. So that has driven my quest for knowledge in the gardening world. Decades.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we, as demanded from other people, well, I guess requested, we actually put together some pictures, thanks to Cree. She took some pictures of some basil that she had potted and also some of her garden. So we're gonna go ahead and start with that, and then we'll move on to some of the questions that we got, which we got a ton of questions, so thank you so much, guys.
Yes.
All right, let's see here. Okay. All right, so let's see here. So, Cree, why don't you tell us a little bit about what's going on here?
Yeah, sure. So this is my first spring in this house. I just moved in this house over the summer. And so I built some raised beds. In the second picture, I have two raised beds, and we had some trees that we needed to take down. So we put them through a wood chipper, and then that created really nice mulch. And then over to the left is compost that we build, and I'm working on putting in, I'm building two L's so it has lining for the walls. Just a very simple compost. And I'm working on putting the lid on top too. So super simple. The other side of it, which I didn't take a picture of, is a little bit lower, so I have access to like get in there with a shovel and scoop it up. Yep, nothing fancy. And then two raised beds, and then the right picture, I have another raised bed, and then there is potatoes that I planted, which I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's very exciting. Yes.
Yeah. And the area behind that is going to be my herb garden. I had a pretty good herb garden going at my mom's house, and kind of went over to her house all the time to maintain it. But with the quarantine, you know, I don't get over there very often. So that's what I got going on for the garden. It is simple and practical, and I'm super excited to get everything in the ground.
Well, since we're talking about composting, I'm going to go ahead and shoot this question both your ways. It says right here, how do you feel about composting? Clearly you feel good about it because you're doing it. How do you garden with compost? How do you start compost? And can you compost animal feces like dog and cat?
Interesting. Paul, why don't you go? I really want to hear from you on this one, and then I'll pick up, I'll pick up behind you.
That's a great question. I love compost. As most of everyone knows, I have a biodigester where I create liquid compost. But if you don't have a biodigester at home, a great way to add fertilizer and nutrition to your garden beds. It's cheap and easy and practically maintenance-free. Generally, anything can go in a compost pile, but you want to stay away from meat, animal products, because those kind of things attract some animals. Generally, you want to put in a good mix of green to carbon, which we can talk about a little bit. And those can come in the forms of old leaves, shredded paper, and grass clippings. It doesn't take much to start one. The organisms create a little bit. Depending on which method you use, can really be maintenance free. Sometimes I just dig a big hole in the center of my garden and throw my. It's really that.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I mean, I've actually started composting in my apartment with just a bucket. So, like, if you live in an apartment, you can start with a bucket. I mean, you have to put worms in it. Well, at least I put worms in mine, which can be, I guess, a little bit scary to have worms in your apartment. But for me, it was fine. So, yeah. So, like, if any of you are watching this and you don't have a place to have a composting, you can, do it in the garden, and there's a lot of like online sources that can give you information about this kind of thing. And so but yeah, very cool.
Yeah, I agree. One more thing, composting is amazing for so many reasons, right? It provides you with soil, really nutrient dense soil. But I've also found for people that start composting, they take note of how much food scrap they produce, instead of throwing it in the trash and, out of mind, out of sight type of deal, they have to put it into a container, and they realize how much they build up over time. It can be quite surprising. Um, so even if that's it, you realize how much food waste that we have, and it can go to a much better place than a landfill. I'm down with it.
Oh yeah, like reusing what you have, and that's energy, and that's resources that you can use. So yeah. So actually, how do you garden with compost? I know that sounds like a simple question, but I know that there's some sources out there saying that it could be dangerous to garden with compost for like food sources. Is that true? Is that okay? So I wanted to get into that for a little bit for some people who might be wanting to use this for like their vegetables, or if they just want to use it for potting plants or something like that.
Generally, compost is safe. You have to keep in mind that what you put in is what you get out.
Okay.
Going back to the animal waste part of this, it put in animal waste. Generally, pet waste is going to break down. You can even use human waste, though I wouldn't. There's books on that called Humanure. It's a whole different topic. It talks about the medicines and things. But anyway, there's multiple ways to use compost. You can work it in the soil when you go to plant your plants a little bit at a time and evenly distribute, or you can top dress around the plants so as the rain comes down, it works in slowly over time. You want to try to avoid using new compost. It tends to be a little, what they say, hot or acidic and can burn your plants, but a well-aged compost is going to just work in nicely and shouldn't.
Okay. Very cool. Okay, so you're kind of recommending that you use like a original soil, and then you kind of use a compost in addition to what soil you're using. Okay, cool, awesome. All right.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. It's more adding nutrients to already existing soil rather than the compost being your sole soil.
Okay, yes. And that's how I kind of already took over from it with planting, like being a new gardener myself, is like I always kind of thought of compost as like an additional food for the plant kind of thing, as opposed to it being the actual like, or the what soil it grows in. So yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Very cool. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay. So looks like you got some potting going on here. You want to tell us a little bit about this? I think you're muted.
That would help. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah. So I started some seeds. I got a lot going on here. And this is a mix of potting soil and some compost, and I'm germinating them, basically. I'm letting them sprout. And the soil is nice and wet, and nutrient rich, and then I keep it covered with plastic so it keeps all the moisture and the heat in, and then setting it in a warm, sunny spot. And this is a great way to get seeds going. And then I start hardening them off once it gets a little bit warmer and they start to sprout. So that's what I got going on here. What do I have in these? That would be super helpful. So I got some eggplant and peppers and okra and squashes outside already. Yeah, I think that's what I got going on in there. And over to the right is some mushrooms. I'm just starting to grow some mushrooms too.
Very cool. Yes,
Yeah.
we all love mushrooms, as we learned in the last video that we did. So I actually have some questions in relation to this.
Okay, ready.
So I'll start with the first one. What type of potting soil do you use?
So I don't have a specific brand that I go to. This year I used Black and Gold from Southern States. It's an organic potting soil. It's nice. It's what Southern States had. I've never used Miracle Grow, but that's my friend's favorite. I just don't recommend it. I think it's already pre-treated. So I would just go with organic potting soil and look at the different levels of pH and the different nutrients that they have, depending upon what plants you want to grow, because some plants require different pH levels, and that's a lot of research, and I wish I could tick that right off. Maybe Paul can, but that information is out there. It's usually not necessary to get your pH level, checked for just a small home garden. But if you were to have a larger farm that you wanted to treat the soil with, that's kind of when I would get into the specifics of it. What do you think, Paul?
Did you catch all of that, Paul?
I may have missed the end there, I think.
So we're just talking about different soils that you would recommend, potting soils that you would recommend for people to use.
Generally, I go with whatever I can find. There are some differences. Your seed starting mixes are going to be a little bit finer of a soil texture, and that's good because you're usually using small quantities. Some box store soil, the cheapest of the cheap, is going to be a lot more like mulch, probably. Fine, and maybe even a little poorer and nutrient dense. Generally, I would tend to find make your own potting, vermiculite,
Yep.
peat moss, and and it doesn't, you buy big quantities of those three things for cheap, and then it doesn't take very long to adjust them the way that you need them. But like Cree said, sometimes you do have to watch the pH because different things can be a little sensitive, and we have a high here, so you try to want to find ones that kind of.
Oh, I think you're muted, Paul.
We lost that last bit there. We should try to find one that's kind of lower in pH.
That little bit. That's a little
lower in pH. Okay, cool. Yeah, because of the high pH area. Okay, awesome. Yeah, awesome. Okay. And also, what I guess in addition to this, what kind of fertilizer do you guys recommend using if you use any?
My fertilizer for a lot of things is compost. And then I know a farmer that has very old horse manure that's been composted. So I use a mix of that for my fertilizer.
Okay.
Yeah, horse manure tends to be super, super nutrient dense and breaks down very nicely. And most of the time, farmers that have horse manure are ready to get rid of it, especially if
Imagine.
especially if it's super old. Which honestly, the older that it is, the more broken down it is. So that's what I use.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Paul?
I use a compost tea that comes from the biodigester.
Oh, okay.
It gets broken down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Other times I use form. It's pretty complete. But you could use things like compost. That's the easiest. The easiest thing is compost. Secondarily, granulated fertilizer that's complete. But you just kind of want to try to read the labels and stay away from over fertilizing, because that can be just as bad as under fertilizing. Not only can you burn your plants, but excess chemicals and nutrients in our system, you know, they get in the waterway, as we're familiar with. It's not the best. So if you can tend to go with a more organic and compost type route, or a liquid direct control or liquid fed type system, that's really the best way. But in an easy way, just use compost.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Great.
Win-win for the compost.
Yeah.
So how do you tell the difference between over and under watering plants?
Well, I am guilty of both.
I think we all are.
So and the thing about it is, plants require different watering schedules and the amount of water that they need. So getting to know your plants' water likes and dislikes, but one thing that they do have in common is droop and browning, yellowish to it. So if you're overwatering it, the plant will be limp, but the soil will be wet still. And root rot is also a big thing. I find that with like my root veggies, if they get a little bit too much water from rain and things like that, that they start to rot. Under watering, I find is still limp, but brown and crispy and dry and just not happy, and the soil looks super dry. What about you, Paul? What do you think?
I mean, I think you pretty much got it. The big thing is our plants are living things. You just kind of have to learn to read them a little bit.
Yeah.
A little practice, it can be all right. One thing that I like to do, which is super dirty but fun, is I like to find the origins of the crops I'm trying to grow, and find out what country they came from and what the climate is there. So I kind of get an understanding if they're from a place that has a lot of rain, or they need.
Oh, you muted again. Oh, Paul, you muted again. I understand what he's saying though, and like the best example that I can give, like I'm looking at it right now, so I just kind of want to show this off. But I found this in the woods. No, my boyfriend found this in the woods while he was turkey hunting, and it's an old honey bottle from the 1950s, and a moss garden started inside, which is so cool.
That is awesome.
I know. So I'm trying to replicate the environment and the climate where he found it in the woods. So what type of moisture it liked, what sunlight it had, that way that I can keep this little baby going. And that's the same with plants in your garden. Find out what they like, what temperament they have with water and sunlight.
Talk to your plants.
Talk to the babies.
Get to know them. Listen to them.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, if you end up finding mold in your plants, what is your recommendation?
Just Paul, do you have one? Because this has happened to me, and
mold.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, fungicides are really kind of the way to go. Overwatering is a reason to cause mold.
Right. Yeah. Done that before.
Some because they have a symbiotic relationship with mold, but really, overwatering is the main.
Mm-hmm.
So if you overwater, like Cree, like you said, you've experienced this before. So like, what did you do with the moldy plant? Did you just decide to throw it out, or you try to like kind of get rid of it, or?
No, I try to salvage a lot of it, and the majority of them have been indoor plants, and so I'll repot them
Okay.
and get some fresh not dirt, fresh soil, and try to recover with a little neem and water dilution, kind of to just get the mold cleared away, and hope for the best. Kind of dry it out a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of leads into the next question is pesticides. If you guys recommend any kind of pesticides, or if you even use pesticides. So no, okay, I didn't think so, but someone asked, so figured I'd say.
Neem oil is the best pesticide. So diluting neem oil in water and using that. And then companion planting goes a long way. So planting plants near one another that deter pests.
Okay. Okay. Very cool. So like they kind of have like a.
One thing I have a thing is. What is it called? Is I use this insecticidal soap. It organic insecticidal soap, and when I bring plants home from say store, sometimes they have creepy crawlies uh, and things, and I don't want them to contaminate my other plants. This is just a basic soap that you spray on and let it sit, and then as you water, it just kind of rinses off. Or as you before you go to eat, it rinses off, and they just it gets in their ways. They asphyxiate. So it's not anything that's totally harmful. It's more or less like soap, and works wonderfully for the.
Paul, I've heard about that too. And it's the saponin concept, and or like a surfactant, right? The soap will become like a surfactant on the plants and keep the pests from eating plants, and they get all soapy, but it's still super safe. I've heard that this there's my cat. I've heard that this dries out plants though, especially in the heat. Like it's a great weed killer too.
Okay.
So if you're trying to like kill weeds around it, and you don't want to like pull them by hand intensively, spraying soapy water on weeds in the heat kills off plants.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, Paul, if you find out what brand you use, you can send it to me, and I'll post it in the comments afterwards, so that people can look into getting that if they want to. So, all right, cool. Well, let's move on to the next slide. All right, what you got growing here?
Ooh, okay. What do I got growing? Okay, so first big picture is lettuce from last year. It's doing great. Looks healthy. I had some last week. It's delicious. And then bottom picture is apple mint, and it was planted that one single stalk, and then it's spreading, which I'm so happy about. I love all forms of mint, and I want them to take over my life. And then the other picture up top is cat mint, which I do love, and I try to give some to my cat, and he wasn't having it, so that's how I feel about that.
Did your dog like the mint?
I don't know if dogs can have cat mint. I really want to give it to my cat and see what happens, because I've seen videos and it looks great.
Never heard of this. Now I'm gonna Google this afterwards.
No, these are just a couple things. The cool thing about mint is that it is so easy to grow. It'll take over. I'm waiting for peppermint and mountain mint to come in because I've ordered some from my favorite seed company. But, you know, I don't know when I'm going to get it, and that's okay. So I got those 2 varietals right now, and I'm super excited about it.
Awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
I know this doesn't quite lead into this question for this particular photo, but pruning. What is pruning and why do you do it, and is it important?
Oh, it's super important. Paul, why don't you take this one, and I'll follow you up.
I missed it a little bit. Please repeat the question.
Okay. So we're talking about what is pruning and why do you do it?
So for trees and plants, pruning is a way to take off damaged foliage or parts. Pruning can be, is it necessarily? Maybe, maybe not. Some things can be pruned for more vigor and things, which grapevines and long-term bearing hardy vegetation. Say I would go through and I had a flowering plant like a geranium or something, I would prune it by hand, so that kind of encourages new growth. I also prune the top of my fig plants. I'll pinch out the start ripening up a little better because it's not encouraging the vegetative growth, it's encouraging the reproductive growth.
Okay.
Bearing fleshy fruits and vegetables come from is that reproductive.
Yeah, what he said. I prune all the things, and the best example that I can give, well, there are a couple examples. So the 2 ones that are easy to identify for pruning are going to be like squashes and tomatoes. So for tomatoes, they have this beautiful center stalk stem, and then I'm trying to break it down very simply, and then offshoots of other stems which will start growing the tomatoes. And then if you'll see the main center stem and then stalk and then offshoots of that, they'll start to grow another one in between those, and they're called seersuckers. And you want to
yes,
pinch those babies off so that the plant can focus on its main stems with the fruit bearing in there. So that's one way to prune a tomato plant. And the other one that's a really great example is squash. So when the plant is still growing, it's super eager to start producing flowers and fruit. So in that time, when it starts producing a flower, I will prune it off. I'll just clip it off the first 2 or 3 so that it encourages the vegetation growth, like Paul was saying, so it grows a little bit bigger instead of like really trying hard to pump out little baby squashes before it's matured enough.
Okay.
So that's why pruning is super important, so it can produce well and become a healthy, happy, mature plant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, Paul, have you ever fed a cat catmint?
I have fed a cat catnip, which is similar. But what was surprising is when we did a test run of catnip from the store versus country catnip, the cat preferred the store-bought catnip 9 times out of 10. I don't know if they can cure it a little better at the store, or he just had to warm up to it.
It's the dried, I think, treated catnip that cats love a lot.
Okay.
Gotta figure out the ways.
So, are we talking about catnip or are we talking about cat mint?
It's catnip.
Mint. Oh, okay, okay. I was like, so I just want to make sure that we have like, no, I'm not talking about cat food, guys.
Oh, no. It's catnip, but it has a really nice minty aroma to it.
Okay, very cool. Okay, I thought you said cat mint. So, all right, cool. Very cool. All right. All right, we'll move on. Here we go. All right, so basil.
Yes.
Which I know you've been working on for a little bit here. So I know that you wanted to go over on how to pot some basil, which you did actually type out some instructions, which I'll be posting in the comments below afterwards, so that you all can see how she did this. So, but let's go over it.
Cool. All right. So my lovely partner bought some organic basil from the Whole Foods. He braved the grocery store. Thank goodness for him. And brought home this beautiful, lots and lots of basil. So there's a beautiful way to separate all of these very tender roots of the basil plant so that it can promote growth. When the roots and everything is clustered up so much like that, it'll die pretty quickly because the roots are so clumped together. So step one is literally gently get your fingers in there and wiggle it into two. And then step two would be to very, very gently identify the stronger roots in there. And from the picture, you might be able to see when the plants are separated, the stronger roots will have a larger root system, and then the smaller babies will be super, super clumped together. And it's a very delicate process because the roots are very tender, so you have to be gentle with it. But you can separate the individual plants so that you can repot them, which is pretty cool. So I did that, and I got quite a bit of different root systems, which is cool. And so I repotted them, and I tried to kind of imitate the same amount of soil that they already grew in, so it wouldn't be a shock to the system because they've already been separated from one another. So we planted them all in their new happy homes with some good soil. And then the second, or I guess I'm on the third process, is to prune them. And so I identify the different nodes of the plant, and the nodes are where the shoots come out, the individual leaves. And hold on, I unfortunately can't see where, oh, there we are. Oh, you're there. Okay, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, thanks for keeping up. Awesome. Okay, so on the left picture, you can see the different stems coming out, and I pinched off where the new baby growth was. And that's a way of pruning it so that it isn't worried about keeping to reproduce. It's so that they can get acclimated to their new home. And I did that with all of the plants. And then they were looking a little bit sad and dilapidated. So water basil plants a lot. They love a lot of water with good draining soil, and they love heat. And I ended up getting 17 different replanted basil shoots, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like
gift them like crazy.
You're gonna have a lot of basil.
Lots
of Italian food.
Yeah. So I've been hardening them off, which is bringing them outside during the day so that they get lots of sun and heat, and then bringing them back in at night. And after a few weeks of doing that, 2 tops, they'll be ready to stay outside, and they can be repotted into larger pots, and they'll take over that. You can put them in the ground. I like to keep basil in pots so that I can bring it back in during the winter.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense, yeah, because the winter's gonna wilt those pretty quickly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very fast. So, all
Yeah.
right, well, we'll just leave the pretty basil right there while I ask the rest of the
Okay.
questions because that's a gorgeous picture. And I guess let's start off with this one. What is the best way to start a garden outside? Either of you can take this one.
Okay, Paul, go, and then I'll follow. Got
All right, number one, most simple way to start a garden, the easiest way. Go buy a bag of potting soil. It a few times and cut a slice in it and set it on the ground. Hook your plants in there and then they'll grow. Insta garden. Doesn't much easier than that. Anything else is a lot more work, but
that is hilarious. So, I mean, that's a great way to do it. I mean, that's starting small. You have one bag to work from.
Yeah, that's great. Yes. So,
I always start small. Start in a couple containers so that it's contained. You know what you're working with, and pick easy things. So, if you are just starting, start with mint or something. Start with something that grows well, low maintenance. If you're looking for veggies, something super low maintenance. Like I think that potatoes are low maintenance. I think that tomatoes are low maintenance, and beans, just
green
start
beans.
small.
Green beans are so easy.
So easy.
oh yeah.
Yeah, and I love green beans. So when I found out that those were an easy thing, I'm like, yes, you're doing green beans. That's the first one. So yeah, and I think that I get a lot of people who ask me like, it's so scary to start your garden. Like I don't know what I'm doing. What do I do here? And honestly, like if you're doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. You can start over if you mess up. Like it's gardening. It's not like you're I don't know, building something that's going to destroy the world or something like that. It's not complicated. So and
you're gonna mess up.
right,
Oh yeah.
trial and error, like it's everything within life. You want to try it, and then if it doesn't work, then you try it again or you try something different. And it's all about research and educating yourself. And so just starting something small, like you guys said, like doing like tomatoes or potatoes or green beans or something like that. So, or just a flower. So, or like me, a cactus, and then you kill it. So, got to water it. One ice cube thing. So, but anyways.
That's amazing.
But I went back to it. I went back to the gardening. So.
Right. It's about getting back to it, but starting small is the best way. Like you're not starting a farm, right?
Right.
You're going to start 2 plants, see how it goes, and then maybe start another plant the next year, and then get it another one the next year until you have a garden going and you got a handle on it.
Right, exactly. And it's not going to hurt anything. Like you're just and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. Yeah. So so what is the best way to keep animals from your garden? Dogs, cats. I'm assuming like deer for some people, if they have an outdoor garden.
That's just how it goes. One for me, one for the babies.
That's true.
But so I've read a couple things, and I personally haven't had much of a problem with it, except when I try to plant fruit trees at a house I used to live in. But I've heard that putting large things around the garden can deter some animals, because it makes it seem like something large and predatory is there. But dogs, he's right. Just being active and out in your garden and letting animals know, like, hey, this is my zone. Get out of here, Or if you have the ability to build a fence, that's best case scenario, but that's not, it's not an easy thing to do by any means. It's expensive, and, you got to plan it right and do all that stuff. Yeah.
So I know some people
One
use.
thing,
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
one thing I use, and you can find at most, like Tractor Supply or Southern States or your general agricultural supply store. It's this deer netting. Going back to Cree's point about keeping your first garden small, the deer netting is 7 foot by usually a 200-foot roll, and it's kind of pricey in the beginning. But if you have multiple small beds, you could cover them no problem, and it has inch squares, and it's very fine, and you can't even tell it's there. So a lot of time and everything, but it's going to keep a lot of those animals out. Fence, chicken wire will do it, but the big thing is just have a garden that's controllable enough that you don't have to worry about excluding a lot of things because you don't have a big enough footprint right yet to worry about the animals really going.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's really good advice. Yeah. So I know some people use hair. Have you guys ever? Yeah, like so. Yes, like people put hair in their gardens. I didn't know if that was like an old wives' tale or if that actually works, or if there's like some. What are your thoughts?
I've heard it.
I would say it works. I've heard it also that it's got like 3 times the nitrogen level of most things. So incorporating hair into your garden is a very good source of nitrogen. I've thought about asking the barber for extra hair because they sweep it up all day, but I didn't exactly want to be that person's like, can I have your hair for my garden to keep the deer away? Even though I know and understand that a lot of folks do that. You go in there, it's supposedly supposed to keep the deer away. It'll work for a while, but over time, get used to that, just like most everything else.
Yeah.
But for nitrogen, that's the way.
That's interesting. I didn't know about the nitrogen part, but that actually makes sense. Yeah, so. I just remember because like my mother used to put hair in the garden. She'd trim our hair and then we would collect it and we'd put it in the garden. And so it was always to deter the deer. And I guess it worked, but I don't actually really recall. But good to know about all of that. So yeah. You should go ask the barber for the hair.
Amazing.
I mean, another way to look at it is, you're going to eat them, so you might as well give a piece of the vegetables a piece of you,
Oh, I love
there
that.
you go. Full circle.
Oh.
Yes, you're like, you're going to feel me, so I will feel you with my hair. Cree's loving this. She's going to go ask the barber for the hair.
Oh, barber, girlfriend. I am making like really poor decisions on how to cut my hair.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Close.
Cut her own hair. We're gonna see you next time. You're gonna be bald. Be like, I had to feed the plants.
It's for the plants.
Anyways. So next question. Can you talk a bit about limited space and recycling different containers into plant pots? How do you make them clean and safe?
Oh, okay. I'm on it. Or maybe he has something cool to show.
I think he's going to show us a recycled plant pot.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. I'll talk. We're gonna talk about limited space. So limited space, yeah. I recommend vertical growth. So shelving is really nice.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I love it. Yes.
What is that, Paul?
This is a pepper plant. It's not an ideal container for a pepper plant, but I kind of had some winter blood. It was kind of fun. Ideally, you want a pot or a container with holes for drainage. This doesn't have drainage because I didn't punch any holes in the cup, but I just mindfully water it, not so much that way it doesn't drown. But you can turn anything into a container. It's if it's durable, if it's semi waterproof and not going to fall apart, poke some drainage holes in there, and you got it. It could be anything. And to echo Cree's comments, vertical gardening, that's definitely the best way to maximize your space. There's a lot of vertical square feet, so grow up, not
not out. So like skyscraper gardening.
Yeah.
Build up.
Yeah, I've seen some really cool things that people have turned into gardens, like putting a weatherproof shelf outside or building a weatherproof shelf and then making like little mini raised beds, if you will, on the shelves, which is pretty cool, and drilling holes so that the water flows down. I thought that was amazing.
That sounds really
But
cool.
hanging plants are also really nice. You can do like cherry tomatoes and different herbs and things like that. Anything that climbs is also really nice so that it can climb up, like a trellis. Beans and things like that. Yeah, vertical growing. And of course, going small if you don't have enough space to, have a really big garden, right? Just do what you can with your small space and try up rather than out.
Okay. So like think city. If you're living in the city, think city. So think, skyscraper as opposed to flat or horizontal.
Yeah. For example, my friend she's staying with her parents right now, but she is an indoor plant aficionado, if you will. Like I've never seen more plants in one room before in my life. But she has her bedroom she has 2 windows, and it's just covered with plants wherever light comes in through her windows. And she has like 6 shelves like pushed up against the walls around it, and it's a garden in there, and it's amazing, and it works well, and she has that little tiny space to grow it. So yeah, you can do some pretty cool things with some light and water and plants and soil.
Very cool. I've never thought about vertical gardening, but that actually sounds like a lot of fun. Even if you don't have a lot of space, just trying it, that sounds like cool.
Fun. Yeah, it is.
Awesome. Yeah. So speaking of indoor planting, what are plants to help kind of cleanse the air to kind of create a more, or I guess less toxic environment, especially if you live in the city?
So Paula probably knows about this too. There's so much science behind it about it not being super efficient, but I still think that plants indoors are amazing, if not for the ambiance, right? You have green inside your house. You have a living.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree too. It really does add.
You need that in your life.
The atmosphere, yes, of the room and such. So.
Yeah. I'm so excited to hear what Paul has in his house. But I have chosen snake plants, fire plants, jade, and pothos. I also have a money tree.
A money tree?
Oh, yes.
A money tree. I don't know what to do.
And they say money can't grow on trees. But they can. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It has like these twisted roots around it, and yeah, it's said that the more fruitful that it grows and how big it gets, like that's how much money it will acquire if it keeps growing. So
I like this.
So far, it's actually been true.
Oh, okay. So I'm getting a money tree.
Except right now, obviously, like it's down.
I'll keep a money tree.
It's funny. I do have a money tree.
Yes.
Buying plants. I also have things like tomatoes, oregano growing. You can kind of see maybe behind me or not. I like to keep plants indoors that are edible. The tomatoes I'll use eventually in the garden again because I'll make cuttings and then use them in the garden again. So
Yeah.
you were saying a window that's a wall of green. I can't see out of it anymore. It's kind of funny she would mention that. And I'll be using getting to my outside garden when it warms up a little bit more.
That's
Okay.
fantastic.
That's awesome. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, I really like the spider plants, the one that you were just talking about. They just kind of like grow out and everywhere, and they're beautiful, and
That's
they just
one
kind
of
of
my
take over
favorites
a
also.
room. Yeah, like
Yeah.
they're easy to take care of too. So they're not super difficult. You know, if they do go a little yellow, you just kind of trim them and water them, and you know, they're pretty formidable plants. So
Totally.
yeah.
Where my sister, my older sister, is a plant lady, a house plant lady extraordinaire, and she loves IKEA plants. And so I got a jade plant from IKEA long time ago, and it's kicking. It's still kicking. It's growing, and I'm like, okay, IKEA, all right, right. So it's not fake, I promise. But I've heard that jade plants are also really great for cleansing the air as well, air purifier. But you do have to have like a lot of them,
Mm-hmm.
like a house jungle, which I'm down for, but to really get some benefits from it. But
Yeah.
having one in your bathroom, having a couple in the bedroom, just getting that goodness where you can makes all the difference. Yeah.
Were you gonna say something, Paul?
I like Cree says, I just try to keep the plants. Aloe plant is one that I really enjoy. It's very easy to grow. It takes zero maintenance pretty much. And I use it all the time because I'm clumsy and burning myself when I'm cooking stuff. So I keep the aloe. Actually, I have one that sits on my refrigerator. It lives above the refrigerator where it gets the advantage of the kitchen light. And I say it looks kind of like Frankenstein because it's had to help me a few times, but
What it's there for?
have it on there, and they live for a very long time. So eventually they kind of like become like friends.
Yeah, my stepmom still has her aloe plant from when we were kids, like little kids, and it's a monster now, and it's beautiful. So they stay, and I'm an old fart, so like it's still kicking.
Plants. If you can't have a pet, get an aloe plant. It's a plant for life.
And it'll help you through so many things.
That is true. Yeah, it is.
Summer is coming.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's awesome. That's wonderful. All right, let me check to see if we have any questions that I missed.
Okay.
I don't think I did. So actually, I have a question. So when you started gardening, what was something you wish someone had told you before you had started? If that makes any sense. Like a
Okay.
Oh boy.
like the one piece of advice that you really wish you had when you first started.
Cree, go ahead if you have.
Start slowly and start slowly. Seeds sprout, so have faith in them.
Mm-hmm.
And start slow. The seeds do sprout, so don't plant all of them, or you'll end up with a mess. and tend to them, love them, take care of them. It is magic because you put a seed in the ground and it sprouts and it grows into this beautiful thing. And don't take advantage of that. Just spend time with it. And yeah, that's kind of what I wish someone would have told me. Start slow is the main one, though. Yeah. Because
I guess for me, I would have to say, I agree what Cree said, to start slowly and start small on top of it. But moreover, don't be afraid to fail and read. Don't be afraid to fail, because you're going to fail 100 million times. And read. There are always books and information sources available about whatever you want to grow. Everything has been around for humanity. We've been cultivating plants for millennia now. So let's wheel, because I feel like the biggest challenge is we have failure, we get frustrated, and then we just kind of shrug it.
Your hands up.
Take a little time, spend some time in the books or the e-magazines or the interwebs. And with that, it'll work. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I mean, failure is one of the best teachers, like, and then it just makes when you actually do see something sprout so much more better, because you're like, I did it, I finally did it. So but I mean, that's at least how I felt, because I was not great at gardening. I had given up a little bit, but then when you start it up again and you really try to hone in onto it, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So but so is there anything else that
very rewarding for sure?
It is, yes. And it's like I had mentioned before with and Let's Talk Herbs, which, by the way, if any of you have not watched that, I recommend you go. It's on the SU Environmental Club YouTube channel. And also I'll be posting this video on the YouTube channel afterwards as well, for those of people who don't have social media. So, I mean, gardening can be both stress releasing and meditative, and it just has a lot of benefits to it that
for sure.
Oh yeah,
it's so nice to do. So
totally. I mean, if you need to get your frustration out, just go weed. There is nothing more labor intensive and back-breaking than weeding, and then you're exhausted. You're too exhausted to be angry anymore. You're just like, nap time. Like
all the weeds, die weeds, die.
Yes. It's absolutely incredible.
Agreed. So, well, do you guys have any last comments you want to make before we close out for the evening?
Yes. I would like to be available to people that have questions. I am starting off too. I'm definitely not an expert, but I read and I research, and I have good access to people that really know what they're doing and what they're talking about. So if anyone ever wants to ask me a question personally, please don't be afraid to reach out through social media or anything like that, and we can work on it together. This is a super exciting time. We're home. We get to experiment and try new things, and gardening is the most rewarding thing to try. I mean, I know I'm certainly not learning another language, or learning how to play the guitar or anything like that. So if you are interested in learning more, even if you want to learn how to grow medicinal herbs, please reach out to me. I'm here.
Absolutely. And people can reach out, even through SU Environmental Club. If you come through Instagram or Facebook, I'll make sure to get the messages to Cree. So, or Paul.
Thank you.
Paul, if you want this.
Yeah.
Any last words, Paul?
I would just
Like you're
say
dying or
this has
something?
been this is real great. I think it was a wonderful idea, and go SU Environmental Club. Woo! So
Woo!
I'm glad that we're out here taking advantage of this time off to spend a little more time in the gardening. And I hope that maybe this and subsequent ones that come from this will help folks get out there and enjoy the environment they love so much, and maybe help them break the stress of being stuck at home, and maybe together, like Cree. And I just hope that everyone is safe and healthy and gets their hands a little dirty.
Yeah, nothing like getting your
Yeah.
hands dirty.
Oh, we can agree on this. The more time you spend in that soil and in the woods and everything, the richer your microbiome becomes, and you'll become healthier the more that you're outside breathing the air and getting yourself dirty and
That's
this
true.
Yeah, literally, breathing in all those really good minerals and sucking in all that vitamin D. So, yeah. Well, thank you guys so much, Cree and Paul, for joining us and giving us all of your wonderful tips. So all of you people, like this video, share this video with the hashtag Let's Talk Gardening. And again, I'll be sharing this on YouTube. So, if you have friends, don't have social media, feel free to share that with them. And so, yeah, but thank you so much for listening. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. So, thank you very much. All right.
Bye.
Thank you.